Alright, getting out today to show you guys some Unheard tips that I have done with my setup that could help you with yours. First one, did talk about in the build breakdown, is essentially using the Traxxas rings with adapters to make the J-Concept tires that I personally choose to run work. So I bought these M26 by 32 washers. They fit perfectly in the brass rings that Traxxas sells. These are 31 grams. Need to run a washer on both sides, but that makes me able to run the J-Concept tires with those because I don't like how they fit with all the aftermarket ones, essentially Traxxas and Injoras, and I don't like how the bead of the J-Concepts, because I think it's kind of in between thickness wise. And then one thing I've started doing, this is a TGC brass ring. This one is 26 grams, where this one is 31. Then if you look at the Trail or Injora or any other ones that are compatible with the stock Traxxas tires, they're 35 grams. So I've been kind of tuning this. So I choose to run the Traxxas brass ring in the front and then the TGC ones in the rear. I guess they should be moved around like that, but so I choose to run them to get a little bit more weight bias towards the front. I have also moved over to the RCcrawler silicone inserts. I really like how these are. They are super soft, super consistent, and I like them better than the OG RC ones that I had. They had a stiffer spot. But I cut them out, cut the inner ring out, so they fit on these perfect and are nice and supple. And that's how I choose to run it. I have them a little bit loose on here so they can move around and like recenter themselves after doing some V-cracks. And then they also fit on these perfect too. So these are all typically 35 outer rings, which is why I choose these, because trying to tune the wheel weight with different rings, they will have a different outside circumference. So ordering the 3D printed ones, I've just chosen not to, but waiting on another set of black wheels. I've had 2 sets. I gave one to my son because my trail knuckles in the front don't fit when these wheels have the bigger add-ons, the bigger bolt add-ons to the back. I need the slim black ones. So this is number 1. All right, so number 2 is drive shafts. I realized a couple weeks ago that the ball joints on both these Amazon special drive shafts and the stock ones are the same ball size, so you can actually combine them to get yourself one with plastic ends and a metal center shaft. And then I chose to use the spring to hold the pin in because you know that the rubber O-ring will come off and they recommend to heat shrink. But I thought this was a nicer bit. I've never had this catch and have an issue with it. And then I just use the O-ring up here still, so I have the spare metal ones if I want to put them on the front and back. Now, why do I do that? The main reason is you can see on the stock ones. So this is the one that goes on the diff gears. You can see that it has 2 flat sides. And then this one goes on the transmission gears, and you can see that it has 1 flat side. So the interface of these will help with the amount of play in your drivetrain. This has a little bit more than I want, but I think it's the best I can do with the diff gears that I'm running currently and not shimming them more, because I don't want them to be too tight. But when you take aftermarket ones and you look, they're just completely round. So I've noticed that switching the center metal rods onto the Traxxas end pieces, plastic end pieces, has actually gotten some of the play out. And then for the U-joint ones, they look more realistic and they're super nice, but just back to them having the round ends, which will add play too. So this is not perfect, but this is the way that I am choosing to do it because I really like it. And yeah, essentially I recommend doing this because it makes your drive shaft stronger and you get the spring right there instead of the O-ring. I tried putting a plastic drive shaft to have a breaking point on the front a couple weeks ago, and in less than a week I ended up snapping it. So put the metal centers in and have been good ever since. So the next one is, this used to be a Bontrager frame stop for a internal brake cable. I guess it kind of still is, but I cut it up. You can see the slot and you can see where I shaved it down, but this perfectly goes in back here. So lighting, can you see that? Sorry about the terrible lighting in here. Maybe back here a little bit better. So that's what I'm choosing to run. It gives you a little bit more travel with these shocks. I personally choose to run the 53s and I run them completely vertical, at least as close as possible. And essentially this will take less it will make it less preload. So for the ride height, I run no springs up front and I run the stiffest Injora ones out of the two. I originally was running a little bit more slanted shocks with the softer ones, and on climbs it would just squat and the torque twist was so bad that I was noticing spots that I thought I could get up that just weren't happening. So I readjusted the rear shocks to be more vertical and put the stiffer springs on, and that allows more flex, but I don't know. Flex isn't everything. I just want my truck to be super stable and have roughly a wheel height of flex, and I'm good with that. And I am running the stock Bronco shock mounts in the front still. So that is number 3. Now, also keeping it with shocks, I have noticed that the balls of the shocks for Traxxas, the silver ones, are more narrow than the ones that come on the Injoras. So what I have done is I have swapped out the lower balls in the ball joints in the shocks to make more room for my steering. So trail knuckles, I shaved them down, but this is steering with stock axle internals and the Injora aluminum housing for the stock internals, SSD knuckles, SSD C's, trail knuckles, and this is the steering that I get. And that will lead me into, I believe, the final one, which I have actually talked to Injora. I have chosen to buy 2 different steering link pieces. So I bought the Injora piece that was rod end, metal, double rod end, another metal piece, and then the plastic end over there. And then I took the lay down servo mount or servo steering link and use the bottom, and I think that also adds to why I have so much steering, because when you have the one piece one, I think there's too much bind with the servo horn and hooked to the knuckles. So I've done this to my son's truck too, and he has actually gained a good amount of steering angle just by switching out the steering links. I've reached out to Injora to give them couple tips, somewhere in here. But yeah, one of the ones is to sell these two as a package for keeping the vertical servo. The reason why I like it is because, one, I have the stock chassis still. Two, it kind of looks like a motor still, or it looks like a motor in there, so you don't just have the gap, and I personally like it. I think it's a little bit more scale-esque. And then also, just to keep adding on and on, is you have the bolt that holds the upper suspension links to the servo mount. I run that one single bolt through it, but I take the two little ones out because with aluminum housing, they just have the threaded bolts that go in to get the servo to lean a little bit further forwards, to get this body to slam down all the way. So these are 63 millimeter tires, and the Bronco mounts on the stock chassis. I love how this is. So that is my top 5 Unheard tips and tricks for getting more performance out of, I don't even know, it may be more than 5, but those are my top tricks to get more performance out of your TRX4m that I haven't seen posted anywhere. So I'm stoked on these, super happy with how my truck is handling. Yeah, just tuning it in a little bit more. Went and visited Trey 24 Yep, driving his rocks. Truck did very well the first time I went up, and it was, to me, even better and more controlled going up last time. So not too much has changed since my build breakdown, just fine-tuning everything. Essentially the shock angle in the rear and the springs on the back are the only thing that really changed I can think of. Have a warranty NSD RC servo, but that's the same as the one that was in the video. And then also, to lose 4 grams, I used a Garmin computer strap for their mounts as the battery to get a little bit more weight off the sprung weight. So yeah, if you guys like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, inputs, did I do something good, did I do something bad, or I guess, did I do something right, did I do something wrong, let me know it down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.